Hey guys, it's Christy with Christy's Custom Creations, and lately I have seen a lot of hype about these unicorn burst glitter tumblers. So after seeing an awesome YouTube video by Sippy Couture, I decided to make my own. So I'm going to link Sippy Couture's video down in the description box, so be sure to check it out below. Alright, so to get started you need some paint brushes. I have some acrylic apple barrel paint. The colors I used are fuchsia, bright yellow, and bright blue. Also, I have a little cup of water, I've got a paper towel, and then I have a little bit of wax paper. So I'm just going to take my acrylic paint and dab it here onto this wax paper. Just put a couple blobs down there. I also want to mention that I got this paint on Amazon a while back. I'll be sure to link it down in the description box below. And it's just a matte acrylic paint. It's a quick drying paint, so it dries pretty quickly. So for this video, I'm going to use a 20-ounce skinny tumbler, and I have prepped it and spray painted it white with a flat Rust-Oleum white spray paint. So we're going to take the paintbrush, dab it in a little bit of paint. I started off with blue here, and you're going to just kind of run a streak from the top to the bottom of your cup, but curve it at an angle so it kind of wraps around your cup just slightly. And as you're putting it on, you don't want the colors to mix yet. Make sure to rinse off your paintbrush between each color. And if you have enough paintbrushes, you can use, a separate paintbrush per color. I only had 2 paintbrushes that were like really kind of fluffy and soft, so that's why I kind of just stuck with what I had and decided to rinse it off between colors. Also, try to make sure that your paint isn't on there too thick, because if it's kind of globbed up, if it dries globbed up, then it's going to show underneath your glitter. So you don't want it, you want to smooth it out pretty well whenever you put it on. As I put the paint on here, I made the strips of colors wide enough so that I was able to get the colors on the cup twice as it wraps around. And if you have to go a little wider in one area just to kind of fill in the gaps, that's perfectly fine, but you want them wide enough so that when you blend the colors together, you don't lose any of the colors. Also, don't worry about what the edges of the colors look like. You don't want to go all the way to the edge of the cup, but you don't have to make it look perfect on the edge, because we're going to go in with a little bit of white spray paint and ombre it just a bit. So now it's time to blend these colors, and I just went between the yellow and the blue and just kind of blended them, and yellow and blue make green. So it gives us a real pretty green in there. And just go in, if you need to add a little bit of paint to your paintbrush, you can, and just blend them in. After that, I'm going to rinse off my paintbrush, and I decided I needed some fresh water for this because my water was getting pretty nasty. So rinse your paintbrush off, dab. I grabbed a little bit of pink and blue here, and just dab it and blend the pink and blue. Pink and blue make purple, so we've got a real pretty purple that's going to run between these 2 colors. And I'm going to turn the cup around and do the other pink and blue strip. Okay, so now we're going to blend the pink and yellow together, which is going to make a nice orange color between the 2. and make sure and get both sides. And I kind of almost lost the yellow just a little bit in here, so I do end up doing a second coat on this just to make sure that my colors are vibrant and all still there. I didn't want to lose any color as it wrapped around the cup. So just blend your colors until you find a combination that you are happy with. So it was at this point that I realized that I had forgotten to turn on my light, and we've pretty much been recording in the dark. So I apologize for that. I think you can still see it pretty well prior to me turning on the light, but now we can see it a little bit better. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color. Because I am working with a wet paintbrush, it kind of makes the colors a little bit lighter, and I really wanted my colors to be very, very vibrant and bright underneath the glitter. So I'm just going to continue to add some more in. So now that I've got a pretty good base coat of paint on my tumbler here, I decided I needed to let it dry for just a little while. So I stuck it in front of my space heater, let it dry for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm going to put a second coat of paint on here. Now that it's dry, my colors aren't going to blend quite as much, so I can really get those bright, vibrant colors that I want. And I'm pretty much going to do exactly what I did before. Just brighten these colors up a little bit, blend them in like I want them, and work my way around the cup. I will say that I found that by letting my colors completely dry and then going in with my second coat of paint, it made it so much easier for blending and making these colors vibrant. So I would suggest get your first coat on there, blend them a little bit, let it completely dry, and then go back in and really try to perfect it with the second coat. You don't have to try to perfect it on the first coat. It made such a huge difference. So now that I have my paint just how I like it and blended perfectly, I'm going to take my cup outside, use some Rust-Oleum 2X flat white spray paint, and I'm going to paint the top and the bottom of the cup. I want my spray paint to kind of almost ombre and blend down into my rainbow colors below. So I'm just going to concentrate more along the top side and along the bottom there, because I don't want it to be like a drastic change from the rainbow to the white. I just want it to kind of ombre into it a little bit. So as you can see here, it blends in. The lighting is kind of horrible outside because it's super sunny out, but I've got it to where it just kind of blends in and fades into the colors, or the colors fade into the white. Okay, so once I have the top and bottom spray painted to where I like it, I'm going to let my cup completely dry, because now we are going to apply some glitter using the tack it method. And the product that I'm using is called Tack It Over and Over. I will link it down in the description box below. And we're just going to use a 50-50 consistency. We're going to use 50% Tack It and about 50% water. You want it to be pretty runny so that it brushes onto your cup really well. So I just take my popsicle stick and mix a little bit of water into it. Mix it up really, really well so that it's a nice kind of runny consistency. And you don't have to mix it to a perfect 50-50 ratio. Just get it kind of close. And as you can see here, it's pretty runny, so it's gonna slide brush onto the cup nicely. I'm going to take the same paintbrush that I used before to put the Tack It water mixture onto the cup. I like this paintbrush because it's a nice soft bristled brush, and it slides on really nicely. It doesn't leave it streaky or anything like that. And I'm just going to put a really nice thin layer of the Tack It onto the cup. So just dip it in your little cup here and brush it on. Once you have really good coverage over your entire cup, you're going to want to let it dry completely. It's going to be really sticky. That's kind of the whole point of the Tack It. But you don't want it wet. You want it to just dry to where it's just the stickiness. So I'm going to make sure you always get your bottom, but I'm going to go ahead, brush it on, let it dry, and then we're going to do a second layer after that. Okay, so that first layer of Tack It is dry, and it's pretty sticky to the touch. So I'm going to go ahead and put that second coat of Tack It on here, brushing it on the exact same way we did the first time. Make sure you don't have any streaks in it, because if you leave it streaky or anything, it's going to show in the glitter once we apply the glitter with the Tack It method. So brush it on, don't leave any streaks, and then we're going to let this layer completely dry as well. Okay, so now that I have my second layer of Tack It on there, I stuck my cup in front of the space heater and let it dry. I stuck it in front for about 15-20 minutes and it was good to go. So this color that I'm using here, it's called Opalina, and it's by BJ's Glitter, and it is one of the prettiest whites I have ever seen. It's iridescent, but it picks up other colors around it, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It is probably my new favorite white. So just sprinkle it all over the cup, get really good coverage, and it kind of hides that rainbow a little bit underneath it. But what we are going to do next is going to make this cup so pretty. So get it on there really well, get good coverage, and after you're done sprinkling it on there, any glitter that falls into your little plate or whatever you use to catch your glitter, put it back into your container so that you can use it again. You definitely don't want to waste it. And don't judge the fact that I have this old beat up Thanksgiving plate that I catch my glitter in. This plate here is strictly for my white glitters because I don't want to contaminate my white glitter, so I only use this plate for my white glitter. Okay, now for my favorite part of this whole video. So I am going to take a gloved hand and I'm pretty much just going to rub that glitter. I'm going to rub the glitter down, and I kind of trying to work in circles a little bit. Rub it down and it's going to lay flat on that tacket, and look at this beautiful rainbow color that it's revealing. It's absolutely stunning. So I just continue to work my way around the cup. Don't forget the bottom of the cup. You want the glitter to lay flat everywhere. So if it's sticking up anywhere, rub it. So as you can see, there's a lot of excess glitter that falls as I rub the glitter down on the cup, and I catch it with my plate, but it's really up to you what you want to do with that excess glitter. I personally don't add it back into my Opalina glitter container because it's kind of contaminated. It's a little bit sticky, and so I don't want that stickiness in there with the rest of my glitter. I have a dump container basically, and any excess glitter that I don't put back into my glitter containers, I stick into this dump container, and it makes a really beautiful mixture of glitters. I did not record this part, but I do want to mention it. After I laid the glitter down with the tacket method, I took my cup outside and I sprayed it with 2X Rust-Oleum clear spray paint to just kind of seal everything into place. So once that spray paint was dry, I mixed up some epoxy, and I am of course using my favorite epoxy, Tumblerpoxy, and I apply a very, very thin coat of epoxy to this cup. We are going to be adding a chunky glitter into the middle section here where the rainbow is, so we don't need a whole lot of epoxy. Basically, we are just using it to seal everything into place and to apply that chunky glitter. All right, so once I've got good coverage of epoxy on the cup, like I said, just a thin layer, we don't have to go overboard with it. I start at the bottom and I use my finger and I run my finger up the cup just to make sure everything is nice and smooth. Make sure and hit the bottom as well, smooth it out on the bottom. After that, I'm going to take my butane blowtorch and I'm going to hit the cup real quick. Just make super quick passes. You don't want to hang out and burn the epoxy. Just back and forth really super fast. Just pop any micro bubbles and get that epoxy flowing super smooth. Okay, so for the chunky glitter, we're going to use this beautiful translucent glitter. It's called Crystal Baller. It's a real pretty chunky glitter from Berry Humble. Look at how beautiful that rainbow is underneath the light with the tacket Opalina on it. So for the chunky glitter, I am going to start in the middle and I'm gonna just kind of make a line around the cup, and then I'm going to tilt the cup slightly so it kind of falls up the cup. You don't want it grouped up too much or bunched up, so you want to tilt the cup different directions. We want to concentrate our chunky in the middle, but then we want it to kind of flow into the rest of the cup. So just tilt your cup as you sprinkle it around and let the glitter flow up and down the cup. but concentrate on the center area. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with everywhere where I've got my chunky glitter at. So I'm going to put it back onto my turner here. And turn my turner on, and I'm going to grab a small piece of wax paper. I like to use wax paper to pat down my chunky glitter, because if you don't pat down that chunky glitter, you are going to have a time when it comes to sanding. So just real gently take that wax paper and pat that chunky glitter down. You want it to lay really flat, and when you do that, that rainbow look is going to shine through that chunky glitter, and it's just really going to make it pop. It makes this cup so incredibly beautiful. Once I get my glitter on nice and flat, I'm going to let my cup spin for about 4 hours. It doesn't have to be completely dry to put your next coat of epoxy on, but I let it dry for about 4 hours before I put my first coat of epoxy over the chunky glitter. And look at that. I can't believe how beautiful that is. Okay, so now that I have let my cup spin for approximately 4 hours or so, it's time to put the next coat of epoxy on the cup. So I have mixed up about 20 milliliters of epoxy, and I am just going to get good coverage over that chunky glitter and spread it over the cup. Okay, so now that I have got good coverage over the entire cup, I am going to smooth this epoxy down. I'm going to take my fingers, start at the bottom of the cup, and just run up the cup with it. And my little one decided to bring me some flowers really quick that he had picked outside for me, so sweet. But just smooth that epoxy out, starting at the bottom and running up the cup, and then don't forget afterwards to smooth it on the bottom of the cup as well. Alright, I'm going to, once again, take my blowtorch and make some really fast passes across the cup, just making sure that we pop any micro bubbles and get that epoxy flowing nice and smooth. Our next step is going to be to sand this cup, so I want to make sure that the epoxy is nice and dry before we sand it. Look how pretty that is. But I let my cup spin for about 8 hours before I sand my cup. Now that it is completely dry, it's been about 8 hours, we've got a couple little spots that want to stick up here from the chunky glitter. It's just part of using a chunky glitter. It's usually going to have a few little spots that want to poke up. So I'm going to take my sandpaper. This is an adhesive backed sandpaper, and I bought this on Amazon, the sandpaper. It's a 220 grit sandpaper. I'm going to start at the rim and just make sure I've got a good clean rim here. You don't have to do much sanding on the rim because we applied the glitter with the tack it method, so the rim is not rough at all. It's already pretty smooth. So I'm just mainly going to focus on this center part where we put that chunky glitter. I don't want any areas to stick up. I want it to be nice and smooth, and because it's like a translucent glitter, we're not going to damage the glitter. Like with some solid color glitter, chunky glitters, if you sand them too much, it can damage them and leave them like silvery looking. But with this, it's already a translucent glitter, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm gonna sand it to the point where it is very smooth. All right, time to give our cup a bath. So whenever I wash it after sanding, I always use Dawn dish soap. Just soap it up really good, rinse it off. Now that it's nice and clean, I'm going to dry it off, and it's going to be time for our last coat of epoxy. Make sure that your cup is completely dry before you add epoxy. We don't want any kind of water or anything like that trapped in there. So make sure you're completely dry before epoxy. So for this last coat of epoxy, I mixed up approximately 15 milliliters of Tumblerpoxy epoxy, and I love using Tumblerpoxy for cups like this because Tumblerpoxy has such a beautiful glass-like finish, and it's absolutely stunning. It makes the colors on here pop, and it's just gorgeous. So I mix it up. As you can see, there's literally barely any bubbles in this epoxy at all. It mixes so well. It goes on so nice and smooth when you put it on the cup, and it's really easy to work with. So I'm gonna get my glove out, turn my turner on, and it is time to apply. So as I apply this epoxy, you can see where it really starts to pop in those areas where I had sanded it. It completely covers up and kind of fixes those sanded areas, and it is just absolutely stunning. So make sure, get really good coverage. This is our last coat, so you don't want to miss any spots at all. Get the top, get the bottom, put it on here, and smooth it out really well. I also want to be sure to mention that any products I used in this video, I have linked down below in the description box, so be sure to check it out. Once again, after this last coat of epoxy, I'm going to use my blowtorch and just make a really fast pass across the cup, killing any micro bubbles and making sure that epoxy is super smooth. Tumblerpoxy is really simple to use, so basically after I hit it with this torch, I leave it and let it spin. I really hope that you enjoyed my version of this beautiful Unicorn Blast glitter tumbler, and be sure to check out the description box below to see the link for Sippy Couture's tutorial on it as well, because she did an amazing job on her tutorial. If you like this video and would like to see more tutorials, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Also, if you have any questions at all, please be sure to drop it down in the comment box below, and I promise you I will answer your questions. I hope y'all have a great day, and y'all take care. Bye.